Okay, here's the deal. Right now, the world of Battlebots lives in a pretty established meta. The scene is basically dominated by two types of robots, vertical spinners and horizontal spinners. For years, these two have been locked in an eternal war for archetype supremacy, vying to take the top spot in the competitive meta. Lately, however, the vertical spinner has emerged as the top dog, and the horizontal has started to fall behind. Verticals have the incredible benefit of the modular front end, allowing them to adapt their fighting style to suit their opponent. The horizontal class comparatively has had a much slower time adapting, and although several ideas have been tried, nothing has truly shown an ability to really break the established vertical spinner regime. At least, that was the case. Meet Professor Scrap, my take on trying to beat the Battlebots meta. This video is sponsored by PCBWay, but more on them later. Alright, to understand what makes this a meta-beating robot, we first have to ask the question, what makes the vertical spinner archetype so dominant? To answer this, we need to go back to the days of robogames, when one robot was stomping everybody around by the name of Last Rites. For years, Last Rites existed as the boogeyman of fighting robots. Nobody wanted to fight him, and the ones that did met a quick end. Last Rites was so successful that builders started to rally, developing specific configurations and strategies all to deal with Ray Billing's superweapon. Eventually, all builders kinda just came to the same conclusion: slap a big ol' wedge to the front, dive straight into the fire, and hope you make it out the other side. This proved to be very effective, but there was one big flaw. Wedges are heavy, and back in the day, so was everything else on the robot, which basically meant you either went full wedge or no wedge. But with modern advancements like LiPo batteries and brushless motors, all of a sudden builders had the weight and room to start incorporating wedges into other designs. Pair that with the significant increases in weapon power, and all of a sudden you had verts capable of not just beating, but excelling against the best horizontals in the game. Once the horizontal threat was dealt with, the verts quickly found themselves in a unique place. They were now the top bot, and it meant the new threat on the horizon were other verts. And this is where the real game of Battlebots is played. Long ago, builders realized that the answer to beating your opponent could really be boiled down to one simple question: could I get underneath them? Getting underneath your opponent presented a variety of benefits, but far and away the biggest one that all archetypes benefited from was their ability to break their opponent's connection to the ground. Getting underneath your foe effectively high-sides them, making it difficult to escape and easier for you to control the match. So it's no surprise that very quickly, builders made the push to win what they dubbed the ground game. But this ground game arms race presented a unique challenge to the verts of yesteryear. A wedge could be sharpened and honed to be as flat as possible, but covering such a wide surface, especially on a floor that isn't perfectly smooth, creates areas for smaller and more compliant systems to work in and get underneath. The first true example I've seen this successfully implemented in was the 2017 incarnation of Byteforce. They ran what they dubbed wedgelets, which were basically the progenitor to modern day forks. Unlike other systems run by competing teams, the Byteforce wedgelets were completely passive, relying only on gravity to keep them flat. They didn't need a motor or an operator to focus on them, and most importantly, they didn't weigh that much either, allowing the team to optimize the robot in other ways. It was viciously simple and effective, allowing Byteforce to cruise to back-to-back titles in the heavyweight class. And the robot scene never looked back. We are at the peak of the low ground arms race at the moment. It feels like every few months a new take on the ground game is introduced. Other meta-breaking robots like Huge have found ways around this, basically just by choosing to ignore the ground game altogether. But what if instead of ignoring it, we targeted it instead? Okay, this is the part of the video where I come clean. I did not invent the concept of an undercutter plus forks. A couple other builders before me have tried and successfully used this combo before, but I do think there are a couple unique things that make my design stand out. But Josh, I hear you asking, where did you get such high quality parts for your robot? Well, from my amazing sponsor, of course, PCBWay, let me thank them. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for a million different manufacturing needs. Seriously, think of a manufacturing process, PCBWay probably has it. True to their name, they started out with just PCBs, but now their portfolio includes everything from CNC work, lathes, sheet metal, 3D printing, freaking injection molding, and so much more. I had PCBWay CNC the aluminum and carbon fiber parts for this robot, and I could not be happier with how they came out. Check them out at the link in the description. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to the robots. Previous generation Scrap used to be a control robot, relying on oversized forks and a massive grappling arm to gain the advantage. I eventually zeroed in on this idea of a snapper, but I think nowadays it's more commonly known as a jam hammer, just a big piece of metal designed to get behind the opponent's weapon and break it. Oh! It had, let's just say, mixed results during its run. From the very beginning though, the goal of the robot has always been the same. Don't join the meta, but do something a little bit different instead. And in that sense, I think the spirit of the robot definitely lives on. The design intent of this robot is pretty straightforward. Have a design that can be universally effective against both horizontal spinners and vertical spinners. If they run a wedge, as is traditional horizontal spinner doctrine, I simply lead with my forks, get underneath them, and control the match for 3 minutes straight. If my opponent runs forks, my undercutter will shred them right off, nullifying their ground game and giving me the advantage. If I'm fighting another horizontal, I'm just going to lead backside first, deflecting hits with my beefy 1mm titanium plow. Professor Scrap is designed to be the ultimate contingency plan. Of course, fighting robots can oftentimes be as much of a game of luck as it is skill. I have no idea how well this robot's going to do until its debut competition this Saturday at the Orange County Maker Faire in Southern California. I'll be bringing both Professor Scrap and Professor Wasp in an action-packed weekend you don't want to miss.